Hi, I'm Elaine Harding. Welcome to my blog at stampwithelaine.com. The Countryside Corners stamp set is just one single stamp with different border patterns for each decreasing corner design. The Countryside corner dies are designed to fit around these frames. I won't do it all, but you get the idea. Okay, so it will cut out all the frames. They're not close to each other, there's a gap. So that will cut out that one with the stitching. This will cut out the floral one. This will cut out the dotted one, and that will cut out the fleur-de-lis one. And lastly, you have this tiny little flag end label. So there are 7 dies altogether in the Countryside Corner die set, 6 corner dies and 1 label die. Today I'm going to be making this floating easel card. It floats because it's free from the panel. Can you see that? And these are the materials you'll need. The Countryside Blossoms embossing folder. I used it to emboss this strip here. As you can see, the Countryside Corners stamp set doesn't have any sentiments on it at all, so I've used the Wonderful Thoughts bundle, and these are the dies that go with it, and there's as well floral die and a couple of hearts and some extra labels. So these are the extras, but the remaining ones actually cuts out all these letters on here. We also need the Baker's Twine Essentials pack, and I'm using the white one with the 23 to 2025 in colour dots. I'm also using the Countryside In 12 by 12 designer series paper. I've cut them down to 6 by 6 inches so that it's easier to view. These ones have got sort of woodland creatures. There's rabbits on this one. I think that's a partridge or a bird of some sort. There's foxes, woodland creatures, the trees, and this one in particular, this pattern I embossed with this embossing folder. It will go on and emboss the paper as well. The pattern we're using though is the woodland creature one with the foxes. The inks I'm using are Misty Moonlight and Boho Blue. So the card base is in Misty Moonlight. This is in the Neutrals collection, and it's a returning colour, and this measures 5 7/8 by 8 1/4 or half an A4 sheet, and in metric that's 14.5 by 21 centimeters and folded in half. And to make the easel mechanism, you fold the card front back and butt it up to the edge of your scoreboard and just simply run a bone folder against it and fold it back this way because that's the way you want it to go. So there's your easel. Now, counting from the smallest at 1 outwards to 6 being the largest, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You need number 6 and die cut one in Misty Moonlight. I've already gone ahead and done that. You need a basic white one cut with number 4 and another Misty Moonlight one which is cut with number 2. For the inside of the card you need a boho blue strip, and this measures 2 inches by 5 5/8, and in metric that's 5 centimeters by 14 centimeters. If you're US or Canadian, you know, just follow your card size and make it 1/8 of an inch smaller. This piece is for embossing with the Countryside Blossoms embossing folder. Now this embossing folder is just a standard embossing folder, it's not 3D, so all you need is your platform one, and I do have separate plates for embossing with, because when you use a die cutting one it's heavily marked and it will also mark your cardstock. So I put it in here so that it's central, and then I'll go and emboss that off camera. So bring in my adhesive. Now there's the deboss side or the emboss side, and I quite liked the deboss side, so I'm going to do that in reverse this time. Leave an even border on 3 sides. Then you need a basic white strip to glue on top of this, and this measures 1 7/8 by 5 5/8, and in metric that's 4.5 by 14 centimeters. Then this designer series paper is 1 3/4, because this is 2 inches I think, so it's 1 3/4 by 5 5/8, and in metric that would be 4.5 by 14 centimeters. Then you have a piece for your floating mechanism, which is 3 3/4 inches by 1 inch. So with the short side on top, you score at 3/8 inches and 3/4 inches, and that only leaves you a 1/4 inch. So the 1/4 inch is the bit that you glue to the card base, and the wider bit is the bit that you glue onto your Countryside corner label. You have to burnish it really well. Reduce the size of this, because originally when I used 1/2 inch it was jutting out too much, so I've reduced the size. In metric that will be 9.5 by 2.5, so you score at 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters on the short side. Bring in my silicone mat, and I'm going to apply adhesive on this narrow portion and allow it to dry so that it's repositionable. Now, sadly, the Stamparatus has been discontinued, and I know there was a mad dash for a lot of people to try and get hold of one before it was sold out, and it has indeed sold out. It's not available for sale anymore. Stampin' Up! Has withdrawn it because they had an ongoing legal battle, and they've decided to just withdraw it from their product line. But I'm keeping mine because there are some jobs that you just cannot do without a positioning tool. So now I'm going to use number 5 to die cut this triple stitched piece frame, and I'm just going to anchor the die so that it doesn't move, and at the same time I also want to cut out the smallest, so it's this one here in the middle. So I'll do this off camera and I'll be back. See what I mean? You can die cut that with the largest frame, and then you'll get this dotted frame. You'll get the smaller frames as well. So, but I used it to cut this plain piece of cardstock, so I can then glue it over the center here. That's why I used a lighter ink for stamping, because I didn't want the ink to show through. So glue that plain white, basic white piece on top. And now you can glue this piece on top of the Misty Moonlight piece. So now I want to glue the narrow piece onto the cardstock here, and I've sort of centered it on the cardstock like so. Make sure that that's glued down properly. Okay, and I want to make sure that that is creased really well. So this piece attaches to the label here. Now again, I'm going to, actually the silicone mat, I don't want to get glue on the card itself. I'm going to apply a generous amount of glue here, and again allow it to dry so that it becomes repositionable. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, we can go ahead and do some other bits. So we want to die cut that out of boho blue and tie it with the baker's twine. I've gone ahead and done that to save time and put dimensionals on the back. So for my sentiment, I used You Can Do Amazing Things and Hello for this bit here. So now I'm going to put a cushion underneath, because these are photopolymer stamps. Ink up my sentiment and stamp it in the center here. I think I'm going to change the sentiment to Thinking of You. Don't want the same one for every card. Die cut the word out, or the phrase out, and washi tape on it so it doesn't move, and I'll be back. Now we can pop this floral bit on, remove all the backing papers from behind. Just a tip, another tip, when I tied the baker's twine, I tied it through this stem here so that it wouldn't slide off. Mini dimensionals are a wonderful invention, because on tiny bits like that they're just ideal. So I'll put one up there, I think. Just checking to make sure that it's really dry so that it's repositionable. Fold it back, then position that in the middle. Then we can put this one on, and we need a double stack of that. Anchor itself on. Then I can pop that there, more or less in the middle. And lastly, my other greeting, and I'm going to put some dimensionals on that as well. So this is obviously a card that's probably going to cost you quite a bit to mail, but I would suggest that you hand deliver it. And if you're sending cards overseas, then make the card simpler and not so much detail or height. So there's the card completed. I hope you liked today's tutorial, and if you did, then do give me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it if you liked and shared. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with more inspiration next time. Don't forget, all the links to the supplies are below this video in the Show More section. You can also find me on Facebook, Pinterest or Instagram. If you'd like to read more, then hop over to my blog at stampwithelaine.com. All the measurements and details are in my blog post. Bye.